Lith's fifth winter was shaping up to be a very demanding one. Treating Tista's condition required at least 2 sessions per week, each one at least 4 hours long. He needed 2 hours for the treatment itself, while the remaining time was necessary for him to bathe and recover his strength. Manipulating Tista's mana flow while simultaneously using fire, water, and dark magic took a heavy toll on him. The good news, though, was that with so much practice, he was becoming an expert in casting several spells at once. Also, every subsequent treatment became easier to make, and her condition was quickly improving. Tista was now able to help with the house chores and the livestock. She could even afford to take long walks outside when the weather was nice. But all of this also had a downside. Lith's relationship with his brothers was now much worse than before. Now that Tista was better, someone in the family would always reproach Orpal for his past words towards her, including Tista. Orpal's awful words had really hurt her, shattering the image she had of her perfect family and her caring big brother. Tista had felt humiliated and betrayed, and she was not going to forgive Orpal easily. And soon after the hot baths became available, Raz started using them too. Orpal and Treon were the only ones who didn't use them. Orpal because he couldn't stand the thought of having to ask a favor from Lith.
I'm the eldest brother. I'm not supposed to beg runs for favors. I'm supposed to give orders and be respected. That leech has even turned that cripple against me. And I can't put Tista in her place, or she will make me look like I'm the bad guy who picks on a sick little girl. Stupid girl, he thought. Treon's situation was tricky. He deeply loved Tista, but he also loved and respected Orpal. Since he was the only one that was still on Orpal's side, he did not have the heart to betray his big brother. And with everyone else in the family smelling fresh and clean, their stench stuck out like a sore thumb. Even if the rest of the family was trying to be nice, their faces said otherwise. Then one day, Tista dubbed them Orpoop and T-Reek, and everyone roared with laughter. Orpal and Treon blamed Lith for their humiliation, but he just ignored them as he always did. Raz's and Lith's relationship improved as well. Raz made Lith a pair of snowshoes and started spending more time with him. He also started teaching Lith how to operate a farm and how to whittle. Despite Lith's young age, Raz knew that if he was able to skin and gut animals, it was also safe for Lith to handle a carving knife. Orpal and Treon didn't like this situation at all. Until now, Lith had spent most of his time with his mother and sisters, while Raz spent all of his time with them. Now, they didn't even have that. And to add insult to injury, Raz was teaching him whittling when he refused to teach them until they turned 8. Things got even more complicated for Lith after midwinter. Every time he treated Tista, he noticed that something was off. Both his mother and Rena had an odd look in their eyes. They would open their mouths as if they were going to say something, but then they would give him the silent treatment for hours. Lith couldn't figure out why they were behaving like this, and his thoughts started spinning out of control. Do they know I'm not a child? Have I done something inappropriate? Do they know that I'm from a different world? He thought. Lith's paranoia kept him up at night. He also heard them sighing quite often. Something was definitely wrong. At last, Lith couldn't take it anymore and decided to ask them point blank. They were all gathered in the girls' room where Tista's treatment took place. Lith, haven't you noticed any changes? Lena asked. Yes, I have. Tista's feeling much better now. Of course, but haven't you noticed anything else? Lena said while eyeing Tista. Lith was unsure of what to say. Her health is getting better and she's now livelier than ever. Rena was fuming. Really? So you don't notice how soft and silky her hair is? How it never tangles or has split ends? What about her color? Tista had light brown hair with shades of purple all over it. And since the treatment had begun, it had become more vibrant. Now that you mention it, yes, I do see. But why should that matter? He asked. Rena shook her head. And haven't you noticed how smooth her skin has become? That it has no imperfections? That she's growing taller and even more slender than her peers? Lith was really confused. He knew nothing about girls, and Rena was simply describing the side effects of removing impurities. Why is that a problem? Aren't those good things? Tista shook her head. They're jealous, dummy. They want you to do the same thing for them. Lith was in shock. All those sighs? All that silent treatment was because of these superficial reasons? Lith, dear, his mother interjected. Being attractive is a pretty big deal for a girl. It could mean the possibility of getting to choose between a bad or a good man. It could affect their entire futures.
This made sense to Lith.
And as for your poor mother, it means that I can finally make all those pompous neighbors who keep bragging about their wealth and their expensive beauty creams green with envy.
That also made sense to him, so he agreed to help them. It meant that he had to spend 3 afternoons a week doing the treatment, but at least everything returned to normal. Also, all the practice made his mana core grow steadily and quickly. His mana control also improved, and he was able to now cast spells faster. Then, right before the end of winter, his father came asking for his help. With the weather improving, the families in the neighborhood started meeting often. They would either visit each other or bump into each other while trading goods at the village. So Raz came to him, desperate. "Lith, you have to help me. Your mother looks at least 10 years younger than me, and I'm starting to look more like her father than her husband. People are talking about how she was unfortunate to marry me and that she could have done much better. Please, I need your treatments too." Lith was familiar with the rumors. They were mean and petty. These people deserved to be faced head-on. He would not allow anyone to speak ill of his father.
Okay, but I have 2 conditions. The first one is complete secrecy. No one must know about the treatments, because if some bad people get a hold of the information, they could want to exploit me.
Raz promised not to tell anyone.
Second, you can't mention it to Orpal or Treon, and you can't ask me to do it for them. I don't care if they fall in love or want to marry. They made their feelings towards me and Tista pretty clear, and I won't risk my safety for them.
Raz wanted to object at first, but he had to agree. Their behavior had only gotten worse after spending so much time together during winter. Raz had been forced to scold them multiple times, and he was getting tired of it. "I can only hope that when they grow up, all my children will be able to get along," he thought. And so, he accepted Lith's conditions. A few weeks later, Lith was headed to Celia's house for the usual cleaning when something big happened. The day had started uneventfully. He planned to go hunting afterwards. The weather was nice and the light made the world around him look like it had come out of a fairy tale. There was a thin layer of snow that reflected the sun's light over the weeds and trees along the way, giving them a beautiful aura. The world was silent and peaceful. He remembered the magic stone and took it out of his pocket. The stone looked much better. Most of the teeth marks that the Rai had made had already mended, and both its life force and mana flow had improved tremendously. But Lith still didn't know how to use it. He sighed.
I risk my life saving you and you give me nothing. I hope I can find something in Nana's books. Otherwise, there's no use carrying you around all the time.
Lith was growing impatient and wanted to start his apprenticeship as soon as possible. The apprenticeship meant that he was finally going to be able to study magic from books instead of only by instinct. Also, as an apprentice healer, he would be able to practice magic and get paid for it. Not to mention he would earn the respect and recognition of the entire village. It sounded like a dream come true. He arrived at Celia's door and put the stone back in the pouch. Celia was out of town selling her merchandise, so she had left the door open for him. He cleaned everything in no time. He got out of the house and that's when it happened. He got hit in the head with a wooden stick. His vision went blurry. Then, he was pushed back inside the house and kicked in the stomach, making him fall to the ground.
Looks like I found a little leech,
a voice said. Lith recognized it. It belonged to Rizzle, a friend of Orpal's. Suddenly, Lith was surrounded by 4 boys who started to kick him while he was still down. A 5th boy closed the door after checking that no one had seen them.
Arrogant little piece of shit. Orpal told us all about you. How you humiliate him every day and how you even steal his food,
one of them said.
Yeah,
another one yelled.
He's your big brother. He should be getting the best food, not you, ungrateful little runt. Shut up and keep kicking him, Trant. Remember what Orpal said. If Leech gets the chance to use his magic, we're finished.
Lith was on the floor, curled up and desperately trying to shield his head and stomach. Despite his efforts, a kick grazed his face and knocked out one of his baby teeth.
I know what to do.
Trant grabbed Lith's hand, and using all his strength, he crushed them.
Now let's see how he does magic without his hands.
By coming that close, Trant had inadvertently made the others stop kicking. That moment of stillness was all that Lith needed. He released all the lighting spell he could muster, completely shocking Grant. However, before he could do anything else, he got hit again with the wooden stick and his spell was broken.
You asshole! How dare you hurt your elders! You deserve to die!
The beating resumed, this time with no hint of mercy or any attempt to hold back. Lith coughed blood and teeth. He was completely surrounded by the group. Lith tried to roll out of the circle, but they blocked him and put him back in the middle. A lot was going through Lith's mind. He was angry at his brother's betrayal, and the fact that he was being assaulted by boys twice his age. But most of all, he felt helpless and afraid of dying. What use is magic if I can't defend myself? I need someone to help me. Please, Magic Stone, now's the time to be useful. Please help me. But the stone didn't do anything. He was about to fade out of consciousness, and his last thoughts were of despair and rage against himself for being so helpless. Magic, martial arts, all useless. Then, oddly, his last thoughts went to the Rye. If only I was as strong as that beast. He stopped my magic so easily. His survival instinct kicked in, and he was finally able to focus. By infusing himself with mana. I can do that too. It's the same principle behind life and fire vision. He took some breaths and called upon elemental magic, but instead of giving it a form, he let it merge directly with his mana core and infused himself with earth magic. His whole body became solid. He could barely feel the pain now. Then, he infused himself with light magic to accelerate his healing and to prevent himself from losing consciousness. Soon, he was able to ignore the beating and focus on his next move. He hardened his head and hit Trant in the chin, sending him flying. Before the others could recover from the surprise, Lith got up and raised his guard. Now Orpal's friends were scared. After seeing him dispatch Trant, their only thought was to prevent Lith from using more magic, so they struck again. The first one tried to punch Lith in the face, but Lith imbued his left arm with water magic and made it coil around his opponent's right arm like a snake. Then, Lith used fire magic to give his arm sudden bursts of strength, which he used to completely shatter the boy's arm. Lith finished him with a hit to the nose that completely pulverized it. The boy collapsed on the floor, unconscious. The other boys fell into a panic and tried running away. However, Lith was faster. He imbued his whole body with air magic, becoming fast enough to block them and punch them in their private parts at the same time. The boys fell writhing with pain. All of his opponents had been defeated. Lith spat out a mouthful of blood while contemplating the result of his latest experiment.
I need to decide what to do with these bastards,
Lith said while using light magic to heal his internal injuries. They still needed to pay for what they'd done. Lith sat on the couch. He looked at the boys with contempt and opened his right hand, which released 5 streams of lightning that hit each boy and made them scream in agony.